there's somebody out there, universe wants somebody to hear this, and I better get off my butt and do it. Yeah.
Well, I'm one of those people, and I've got a million questions, but I'm going to limit it to just a couple here. But one of my selfish questions is, I'm an herbalist and also a carpenter by trade. Does my skill set have a place in the new paradigm?
Oh, certainly, absolutely, no question about it. We're going to be forced by the nature of the squeeze in resources, because we're at that 41% of biota being consumed by humans on an annual basis. We're going to be forced, especially with the dollar death.
Biota?
All forms of life. We consume, 41% of all of the renewable forms of life every year. We eat all the critters, consume trees, that kind of thing. We're reaching a critical point. But my point here is that in order to get away from this paradigm and shift into the next stage, we're going to have to be very smart. And so such things as herbal knowledge will be extended to a level that we just don't quite grasp today. And the medicine of the future will not be crafting of synthetic chemicals. It will be those people that will know exactly what set of chemicals can be found in what plant, in what combination that produces the results desired. Plus, that will be married to the idea of the new electrics, and we'll be dealing with a lot of cures, if you will, for all kinds of illnesses from an energetic viewpoint, in combination with the resonance produced by the chemicals that will be ingested through the herbs. So, and we have specific examples showing up where people are going to start, if you will, mining things like lichens for antibiotics in a way that has not been done since the Native Americans. And it's going to produce a revolution sometime around 2013 or so in the way that we treat bacteria at all.
Okay.
Boy, that's exciting, yeah.
My second question is, your latest report reflects information from data sets which strongly indicate that the powers that be are really going to push the people to take this vaccine in the next few months, because I believe, and a lot of other people believe, that this is now or never. They're in a time frame, and they have to do it now. Will there be a clampdown on the internet sales or general sales of any herbal remedies or herbal antipathogens that people can have access to? Are they going to shut that off to force people?
That's kind of our feeling. We don't have a whole huge amount of data to be able to state it definitively that by this particular time this sort of thing goes away. However, we do show that over the period of January, February, and March of next year, the internet comes under some real strain, and it will impact the ability to people to get such things. However, it may be that they're shutting the internet down for other reasons, and that's just a side effect. So we can't say that what is the cause at this point, except that there's going to be disruptions in the ability of the internet to function as we see it now.
Okay.
Sean, thank you. Can we move on, Sean? Because we got a lot of people and a lot of emails, and I want to get to everybody.
Well, I've got one really important question.
Okay, go ahead.
And this is directly vaccine-related. Does your data sets show for people that will be taking the vaccine and just don't know any better yet, but survive, like 3 years into the future, will the new electrics and herbal advances be able to help people who have been damaged by the vaccine they're taking now in the next few months?
That's a very important question. It's
good
a very
question.
tough one. Yeah, the issue is short answer is yes, but the real horrid part of it is that the 3-year time span is a long period, and not a lot of them will make it.
Okay, thank you,
Sean.
sir.
Thanks a lot. Good question. It's very interesting about this shortage already of natural desiccated thyroid that's been happening, began about a month ago. And,
right.
And thyroid, as you may know, Clif, is one of the most epidemic proportion diseases in our culture. It's huge.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, these desiccated thyroids are like, you can't hardly get them.
Well, it's not all of a sudden. The process actually, it is in a sense, but
we just kind of heard about it, yeah.
Right. It took about 6 months for the process to actually develop. We do a lot of macro resource analysis, like Buckminster Fuller used to do. In fact, I've got algorithms that are spun off of some of his work from Synergetics. In any event, we track things like that. And that level, that's just a precursor of what's going to happen in big pharma everywhere, down to all different kinds of levels, yes.
You mean the idea that any kind of natural substance that's competing with the pharmaceutical, they're finding ways to suppress it?
Or to, to suppress it is a real good use, because they won't necessarily cause a problem with the actual production, but they may try and taint the idea that you should use it by saying, oh no, organic herbs are filled with pesticides, and in spite of what they say, and you're going to get this.
Mm-hmm.
So you see all different kinds of articles and what we call fear science, where they're out there promoting a particular fear around a particular idea. And a lot of it, there may be some validity to it, but everybody's going to have to make their own decision. But a lot of it appears to be a big disinfo campaign as part of the herding the sheep in to get the vaccine sort of a scenario. I mean, this is really strange, right? Because I'm an ordinary, regular fellow, and I stumble into what I call the woo-woo world, and I'm led to some conclusions that I just can't shake. And some of those conclusions are really ugly. And they are that, the powers that be have actually launched their next wave of assault against the planetary populace, and they have every intention of doing away with billions of us over these next few years. And that assault is being driven by some level of fear on their part that we can't really reconcile. We don't know what it is they're afraid of down to a definitive statement, but we know that they're afraid, and it makes the world a little bit strange.
We know that they're afraid.
Yes, we do. From the language that's going on and showing up in various places, from YouTube all the way through Council on Foreign Relations, various different subsets of the Bilderbergers et al., all the bankers, we see that the central bank and warfare model, as Catherine Austin Fitts calls it, is at its core is very afraid of circumstances emerging over these next few years.
And people do strange things when they are acting out of fear.
Yes, they do. Unpredictable or predictably wild in their approach to things, and so it becomes a very dangerous time, yes.
Kind of a curious side note, one of the things we talk about, we have been, Clif High and others, of actually taking fresh, just grass-fed glands like adrenals and thyroid from grass-fed cows in Buffalo, and then eating those to build our thyroid. Very powerful. A friend of mine was ordering from a company in Oregon, North Star Bison, or thyroids. The last time he went to order, they said, well, we can't sell you that unless you have a prescription from your doctor.
Now, that's odd.
Isn't that curious?
Yeah.
A thyroid.
It's quite strange.
So, man, it's interesting. Okay, lots of emails. This one from South Africa. I have a couple of questions. In Volume 0, Issue 1 of The Shapes of Things to Come, you make mention of derivatives collapse. However, in the latest report, you don't make any mention of derivatives. Does this mean that the linguistics have changed concerning derivatives? Is the financial system still in danger of a derivatives collapse? And I think there's like 1.25 quadrillion derivatives in that neighborhood. Yeah.
Basically, I need to let people know that no, it doesn't work that way. If we don't bring up the subject from one issue to the next, it means not enough has changed for us to visit that subject again, because there's no further enlightenment to be gleaned from the few changes that have occurred. So in this sense, the answer is no, nothing has changed, and yes, the derivative melt is occurring now. It's not being held in abeyance. It actually started on August 22nd, was our first notice of it in that week. The Chinese had met in June, I guess, to make their decision to not participate in the fraud that we call derivatives, and that was basically the point of the boot that was going to do in the derivatives here, and it's ongoing. We expect the next big problem will develop over the course of October and appear in the latter part of October, but certainly will be manifest globally in the November 4th, 5th, or 6th period.
Oh, you mean coming up very soon?
Oh, yeah, yes, within a month, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is this October 25 date that George Eurer mentions from time to time? What's going on?
It has to do with the first broad category of our language. In order to do what we do, we have to be reductionist to a certain point. So we slice all of our language into two big categories: release language or building tension language. And these are related to how human body expresses itself or feels or reacts to particular kinds of language. So release language is anger language, where your hands are flailing around and you're jumping up and down and shouting and your blood's coursing, etc., and you're all red in the face. Building tension language is the opposite. It's when you come across something suddenly that's scary. I don't know, it varies where you are in the planet, but you get that tightening of the abdomen, that inrush of breath, and the sort of gasp, and all your muscles go tense as you're ready to respond to something. Within those two categories, we sum up all of the language, and at the moment we're in a release period that went from mid-August, about the 15th, 16th, something like that, and runs all the way through to October 25 in a fairly oriented, slanted down, or more intensifying of release language. But on October 25th, for some reason, we, as a planet, do a sudden sharp swing and go into building tension language that's very steep for 10.5 days. And it's a rather troubling, from our viewpoint, graphic thing to look at, because it implies something on the order of maybe a Cuban Missile Crisis, kind of a scenario in the sense of maybe the Israelis attack Iran and things are upset for 10 days and everybody's in essence holding their abdomen tight and their breath for 10 days waiting to see how it resolves.
Boy, this Iran thing looks like this is a done deal.
Doesn't it, though? It's very sad. Very, very, very sad.
Let's go back to the calls. Where are you calling from? What's your first name?
My name is Lauren, and I'm calling from Tennessee.
Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, Cliff. I had a question about I know you've acknowledged the harmony between your work and Terence McKenna's in the past with the Time Wave Zero. And I've watched the track of his graphs and your work, and it matches up almost exactly. So we have this year, the 25th date is the point of maximum novelty on the time wave graph. So it matches up once again. I just wondered if you would speak to that anymore. And then also in 2010 on the time wave, we see a sharp drop off in the novelty around mid-November, which looks a lot like what we saw last year with October 7th. So I wondered if you'd comment on that at all, if you'd seen that at all in your in the work for 2010.
Yeah, I mean, that is indeed the projection from our building intention summations. I have not looked at the time wave zero graph in a long time, so it doesn't surprise me, because I get astrologers that also call in and say, oh, geez, on October 25th, there's this alignment and that alignment, and boy, we're all really screwed. It's like, okay, that's fine. I don't know if enough astrology. I'm sure McKenna is absolutely accurate in how he did his time wave zero stuff, and it strikes me as just brilliant. And it's one of those things where I wish I'd run across it when it was occurring, and I could have studied it for the past 20 years and really been aware of what the core of it is, because it probably is a lot easier to get to the same results or similar results as what we've got. And indeed, the graph is basically on our end, it's going to be kind of choppy from November of this year to November of 2010, and then we get this big drop down into 2011 that is coincident with what we're calling the alien wars. And if McKenna's, I don't know which way his graphs go, but I think that if they drop down, they're going into more novelty. And if that's the case, then that would really fit with alien wars, because it probably isn't going to get much more novel than that.
Are we speaking like really alien wars?
Oh, yes. Not necessarily aliens shooting at each other or us shooting at aliens, but some permutation of the idea of contention, conflict, maybe just even internal, as we're all trying to wrestle with the idea that all of a sudden there's alien tourists on the planet and we got to react or something like that.
Boy, wouldn't that just be like cream on the coffee with all this stuff going on in the 2012 era? Boy, that would really be a party, wouldn't it?
Well, it's going to be. I mean, we see it as a fact. Bear in mind now the way that we do things here. We're living 2 years out in the future pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
So to us, it's an accomplished fact that the alien war business is going to erupt in that period of time.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Really.
The one last thing we have to say about our stuff is that our charts, if we do them on a increasing frequency basis, and they're just a bear to do, but if we do them often enough, we do see a deviation from McKenna's work, and his work is a little bit more static, and ours changes from run to run.